I'm pleased to be here with you. Welcome, and let's start with the full arch lecture. I wanted to start by going over the conventional protocol, which most of you are more familiar with. I estimated that it takes between 6 or 7 appointments to complete a full arch case. This protocol includes wax rinse, then wax setup and trying, and denture conversion the day of surgery. I think this is the most stressful step since you have the patient in the chair waiting an average of 3 hours, and the aesthetic results are not always the most desirable. 6 months after surgery, the patient will come back, and after testing the implants, we'll take a final impression for the creation of a master model. Then, wax rinse trying to capture the vertical dimension and occlusion. In the next appointment, wax trying to check the aesthetics, the phonation, and occlusion. And if everything goes well, you'll send it back to the lab, and the titanium bar will be fabricated. In the next appointment, we trying the titanium bar, and if it fits passively, then you are ready for the fabrication of the zirconia components or the acrylic tip and gingiva, which is a conventional all-on-4. For a final and number 7 appointments, the delivery of the permanent prosthesis. This is a total of 7 appointments. We think that after COVID-19, the patient expectation will be different. Less number of appointments means less exposure for both, for the patient and for the team. So we have to be more efficient with our time and with our protocols. Okay. So less appointment lead to happier patients. We have been fine-tuning our protocol for the past 2 years. It consists in 4 appointments, and to do so, we rely heavily on technology. Well, these are the devices that we are using. First, the intraoral scanner. In our practice, we are using the 3-shape trio scanner. With this, we obtain the patient digital models and occlusion. Second, the face hunter and the PlaneSystem. One of the biggest challenges in the communication between the dentists and the laboratories is the accurate reproduction of the occlusal plane and the midline position. Very often, dentists are forced to send the case back due to mistakes in this step. The advantage of using the face hunter and the PlaneSystem is that the lab technician is able to virtually have the patient right in front of him, 3-dimensionally, at rest, and during the function. So we can have a good prediction of the prosthetic result before the surgery, which is really good. We don't waste material, we don't waste time. Then the Zirkonzahn M4 milling unit, which allow us to fabricate different type of prostheses with the highest quality of materials and the best precision. I am going to outline the steps and develop each one in more detail throughout the presentation. Obviously, it is a lot of information and we have limited time, but this is a technique that we teach in way more detail in our courses. I want to introduce you Alfred. He's a Vietnam War veteran. I did this case in collaboration with Dr. Herrera. He's a maxillofacial and oral surgeon that has his practice in California. I must mention that at that time, I was in my laboratory in Mexico. This is one of the great benefits of this technology, that we can work in the same case even miles away. He sent me the patient files and scans so I could start designing the design right away. Okay, now let's start with the planning and the diagnostic. Remember that we have just 4 appointments for this protocol. For the first appointment, Facial scans and intraoral scan are obtained using the face counter and the PlaneSystem, and the Trios intraoral scanner as well. With this information, I can start working on the digital design of our prosthesis and fabricate the surgical guide that will be used the day of the implant placement. This is how we set all the images together in the scanner program. As you can see, everything goes automatic. Now, at this moment, we have the models and the face in the right position. We will not have problems with the midline and the occlusal plane, but this is not enough. So we use reference marks to mount the models and face related to the articulator. These are reference marks that we are looking in all the patients: the midline, nasal, subnasal, and soft tragus. In cases where we don't have a pre-op scan situation and the patient is edentulous, we can find more reference marks. Here's a little video of the scanner program. We can see here how everything goes in the program. So one of the great benefits with the 3D scanner is that we can move the patient. We can see from different angles, not like just the 2D photo. The 2D photo is good for the planning, for the pre-op planning, but the 3D is gonna help us to finish the proper designs. Hope the video is running good. Okay, and this is how all the components looks together. As you can see, we have the perfect position of the patient in the articulator, the occlusal plane. So we're gonna have a predictable results using these devices. Once we have everything set in position, we make the digital bone reduction. It's necessary that the surgeon and the lab technician plan this step together. Remember that it will determine the depth of the implant placement. Now, the problem when we use the regular denture for the conversion is that most of the time we get a lot of bulk in buccal. So planning our case digitally allows to follow the alveolar ridge structure, as you can see on the images. Now, another advantage is that we can plan our case before the surgery. Remember that at this moment, we don't know where the implants are located, so our concerns are just the aesthetic and the function. So sometimes we decide to use just one premolar and one molar, sometimes two premolar and one molar. So we can add or remove teeth depending of where the last implant is located and the occlusion, of course. Okay, once we finish the design for a natural looking now one-piece structure, we need to follow some concept. such as the tooth-axis, the papilla levels, the interincisal angles, the line angles, and the depth of the interproximal area. At this point, we send the digital mock-up to the dentist for the approval. This is a short video showing our digital planning, and usually we send this video to our dentist, and they can see the pre-op and the planning, the digital planning. So again, we don't waste material, we don't waste time. After we are done with the aesthetic part of the planning, we can check the function since our virtual articulator is dynamic. As we can see here, our virtual model mounting and articulator are perfect. We should not have errors setting up the occlusal plane or the midline. And if we keep the same parameters, the temporary prosthesis will be a good prediction of the final. Once the design is approved, I will use it to create a surgical guide for the day of surgery that for me it has the same importance that the surgical guide for the implants. On the second appointment, which is the day of surgery, we take a multi-unit level impression with PDS to capture the implant position. And at this point, we will initiate the fabrication of our temporary prosthesis made out of PMMA and titanium bar. One of the advantages of all the technology we have available is that we no longer have to put a model. We know that even class 4 stone has expansion, and that by itself can introduce a level of error. So this is our impression, our digital impression, and this is our digital model. In this particular case, we decide to mill a set of models. I think mill models are more accurate than 3D print models for this type of case especially. Now, we have our virtual patient, digital design, and the actual position of the implants in the arch. So, we are ready to fabricate our temporary prosthesis. In our protocol, the temporary prosthesis consists of PMMA teeth cement to a titanium bar. Some clinicians will use this setup as the final prosthesis. For us, this is the best option to guarantee minimal micro movement for the implants, increasing the chances of osseointegration, and at the same time, it allows to use the impression as our final one after the 5 months healing period. This is our immediate temporary prosthesis. Now the patient goes home happy with a new smile and full function. Okay, after the implant healing period, which is between 4 to 5 months after the surgery, we'll check the implant osseointegration, and if that is the case, we'll take an intraoral scan to capture the changes in the soft tissue, and at the same time, the temporary prosthesis will be fabricated and scanned. Something very important to remember is that with our protocol, there is no need to take a final impression. We use the impression taken at the time of the surgery, and we superimpose the information of the soft tissue obtained with the intraoral scan. In summary, our protocol used the digital design done after the first appointment and before surgery to create a surgical guide, a temporary, and a final prosthesis. It sounds simple, but it took us 3 years to get there, and that is the reason why we dedicate one entire training session on the pre-surgical planning. Okay, the great advantage to work with Zirkonzahn is that we have many material options for the final restoration, like Technomet with zirconia crowns and composite, titanium bar with full zirconia, or titanium frame with zirconia and composite. So the big question is, what material should I choose? Based on our digital planning and patient history, I choose to go with the titanium and zirconia prosthesis. We know that the scientific articles say that the 15 millimeters of prosthetic space is the key of success. Now, on the lab side, it is very important to understand the minimum thickness necessary of each material to avoid failures. And here's an example of that. In our case, we decide for a titanium and zirconia because it's a lighter and stronger combination, and we can reduce the weight, and at the same time it's flexible. For our final prosthesis, we use Zirkonzahn's Preto Zirconia. Maybe you don't know, but this company was the first to create a full large implant case, I would say more than 10 years ago, with a manual milling. Here is our prosthesis in green stage. Remember that we scan the temporary prosthesis that the patient has been using for 5 months. So take a look at tooth number 3. Notice that the occlusal contact and wear surface. The occlusion adjustment when we deliver the prosthesis should be 0. Even though the Preto Zirconia is appreciated, we go the extra mile to characterize our prosthesis so they look as natural as possible. This is our zirconia prosthesis with the wash. These are the programs. It's very important to be careful during the bake program. And this is the ceramic first bake. Again, watching the program of the ceramic oven. Well, this is the result after baking the ceramic. And well, we love to work in the little details as well, as you can see on the gum side. The same level of attention given to the outside of the prosthesis is given to the intaglio. Here, you can see the degree of polishing of one of our final prostheses. This can only assure the best hygienic condition for our patients. So I like to show videos and photos, of course, but videos can show you the reality. Okay, the Zirkonzahn system, it's so flexible that we also can create a mill-hard acrylic occlusal guard for our full large patient before the final delivery. The good part is we don't have to scan the prosthesis. We have it already on the digital design, and we just bring that file, and we design over the model. Here are a couple examples of bars with zirconia. So as you can see, planning this way, we can manage perfect the lab part, the lab side. So which is very important for the gum. Here's another example of what I choose zirconia with a titanium bar instead of zirconia and tie basis. The weight it's also less. Okay, these are some smiles that we create using this protocol. The pre-op, the digital design stage, and after surgery, the immediate loading.